Well, I'm going to go ahead and do your introduction, Lee, and we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here on a kind of a cloudy fall day. We are really thrilled and excited to have you, and also to have our host today. Lee Cackley is an instructor in the College of Education in the area of educational leadership and psychology, and she is presenting today as a part of a collaboration series we have with the Teaching Academy called Commitment to Teaching. I'm sorry. So I'm excited to turn it over to Lee, who will talk to us today about accessibility for all.
Hey, thank you very much, Mitzi. I am excited to be here and looking forward to visiting with you. It seems like we have a pretty good crowd. So I hope that I can present enough information that at least you can take at least one thing away from the presentation for your time. I'm going to share my screen now and just jump right in with the PowerPoint. I've created a PowerPoint. Kind of a heads up there as I got into this, trying to figure out exactly what to share with you. There's an awful lot of information. So what I tried to do was pick out the most important points that I thought would cover everybody, and then give you some additional specific sites that you might want to go to if you want to go a little deeper. There's a lot of information at TTU and in the different departments, but this is kind of more just from a universal design for learning perspective, focusing mostly on visual impairments and DHH, but with an overall general help that would work with any classroom, trying to reach as many people as possible. Is my screen shared now? It says it is. Okay, so my name is Dr. Lee Cackley, and I work in the College of Education, and have been for about the last 10 years. I have a 25-year public school background in Central Texas, and moved to Lubbock, got my master's and my doctorate in deaf education, and am the coordinator of the deaf education program in the College of Education. So that's enough about me, just kind of give you a little bit of my background and where I'm coming from. Because my background is that low incidence deaf, hard of hearing. Again, I've tried to make the presentation as broad as I can for all of you. And so my audience, I really kind of was interested, depending on the number of people, on where you all come from across the college. I don't know that with 30 minutes I'm going to have time to do a long introduction, but I did want to just throw a couple of questions out there, and I don't know the best way to find out, but I'm assuming that most of you have heard of universal design for learning. I don't want to offend you or anything, but that's a starting point. And then I'm assuming most of you, if you're here, have had some kind of student with some type of learning, I hate to say disabilities, that's a technical term for learning differences, whatever, in your class. I'm assuming some of you have had that, or like presently or in the past. And if you can kind of give a shake of your head or whatever, it kind of helps. If I were in a room with you, I would have a show of hands, so I would understand who I'm working with here. But I'm assuming, since you're here, that you have an interest in what's going on. So the learning objectives would be to better understand universal design for learning, and in a general way, but also in a specific way. I would like to provide a few practical suggestions for applying it, give you some different kinds of resources as I spoke earlier. So the overarching goal is to provide classroom strategies that will enable you to better understand your students with disabilities. Because I think, as I mentioned, TTU offers, you can go to the Student Disability Services, you can go to the e-learning and get a lot of information. I don't want to be redundant, but try to help maybe provide a perspective of somebody that works with students with disabilities, so you have a little bit better, be more comfortable, is what I kept wanting to put on a slide. Help you just be more comfortable, and mainly as we get into this, asking them what they need. When professors come to me, I get it all the time. I need to have this online conversation and I've got a deaf person in my class. Well, that deaf person might prefer an ASL interpreter. They might prefer real live captioning. They might prefer, I mean, there's lots of different things that someone with a hearing impairment might prefer to use as far as an accommodation. And then also with visual impairments and autism or just a general learning disability. So all of us are instructors. We understand that they're all, our students are all individual. And so I want, at the end of the day, you to be just a little bit more comfortable going to that student and saying, look, I don't know anything about deafblindness. For that one deafblind student you happen to have every 10 years in your class, and say, what can I do to help you? And especially with deaf adults, and that's what they like to be called, not hearing impaired, not individuals with, I mean, they're deaf. They will say, I am deaf. And so that's a little bit of a information knowledge for you right there. They appreciate that and honor and respect you for being able to do that. So the purpose of education is not to make information accessible, but rather to teach learners how to transfer accessible information into usable knowledge. And that's kind of backwards from even what the title of this is. It kind of turns it on us as instructors to make it accessible. So it's kind of a catch-22. But I'm going to introduce you to this organization called CAST. They are the entity that, the nonprofit that has researched and developed and actually created the universal design for learning framework and guidelines. So they are funded. They have worked with some Office of Special Education program grants at the federal level with other entities to come up with the UDL guidelines based on experiences of teachers, based on research, based on feedback. They have come up with these. So that's where this information mostly is coming from. And so their mission is to transform education, design, and practice until learning has no limits. So UDL, I'm going to go through this really quick in just a few minutes. A framework to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all, based on scientific insights into how we learn. And I love that my mantra is successful achievement for all. It was that way in the public school, and it is at the university level. And I want us to keep that in mind. So the guidelines that CAST has come up with are suggestions that can be used to just reduce the barriers in a face-to-face class that can maximize the opportunities for all learners, whether there's any noted special education needs or not. So the top three are the engagement, which is the who of learning, your students, the what of learning, which is how you represent the content, and then the action and expression is how the student's going to learn. So we're going to kind of look briefly. That's going to be kind of overall, and then I'm going to get, as we move through, I'll get into some specifics for you. So the engagement is just to give individual choice as much as you can, and that's hard in a higher education setting. But these three things, how the objective can be reached, the context of how it can be reached, and your tools. So different things. I like to look at it in layman's terms. These are CAST words, or the way they like to word it. I like to word it, the choice between, if you have an assignment and you're going to give them some content and you want them to create something, you know, a choice between creating a video or an infographic or a PowerPoint, or then doing a written assignment. And I have done this. The work comes in when you have to create three different, if you need three different rubrics, but you really don't have to. You could just represent, includes these things, whatever form. You could do your rubric real general so that you can just use the same rubric for all of those when they come in. And the couple times I've done it, I really like it because it gives me something besides just a written assignment to look at. And I can just see if they have the points. Some assignments, some content lends itself to that, others don't. But if you haven't thought of that, it really didn't take as much extra time and effort as I thought it would. Because like I said, as I did my rubric, I realized, I can just, as long as I have the content there, it doesn't matter the format. So that's one easy way to get that in there. This is just information from Cass that I thought was good. I will send the PowerPoint to you. I don't particularly want to just read it to you, but if you need more information or doing some research on that or need some, that'll be in the PowerPoint. Some options for individuals with sensory disabilities or learning disabilities or language or cultural differences. They're all going to approach that content differently. So you're going to have to, and this is where we come in. This is where I think we know. I think we're all very aware of this. But we'll get into, as I said, as we go through this, some specific things to help with if you have somebody with a visual impairment or a hearing impairment. All of these strategies will work with somebody with dyslexia. I think I mentioned autism in my information. Any of these will help make information more specific for someone with autism. I will give you a resource to contact here on campus for specifics. Again, the individual differences are so varied with all of these individuals that we could talk for 2 hours and not give you all the strategies. So I'm going back to ask the individual first, because you don't want to spend a bunch of time creating something for somebody that's visually impaired and they can't read Braille. Or somebody that's deafblind, and there's all levels of visual impairment and deaf. Even deafblindness doesn't mean that somebody's totally blind and deaf. It means they have some type of visual impairment and some type of hearing impairment, which is going to affect their learning. Well, if the hearing impairment's worse, you're going to need to provide probably more support in that area. If it's visual impairment is worse, they can hear a lecture if you just send them a tape of it and they could play it slowly. There's lots, so I'm not going to give like real detail. That's why I'm kind of saying it's kind of general and specific at the same time. But I'll give you some people to contact if you happen to have a person. Those are kind of more low incidence type diseases. But anything, I mean, not diseases, but disabilities. But any of the UDL designs or any of the strategies for someone with autism. And again, they're going to have various idiosyncrasies that you're going to have to work with. And I'm not presenting a behavior, a workshop on how to deal with autistic like behaviors in a classroom. That would be for somebody in the autism area. And this is, again, just different ways to display information. It's talking about text and images and graphs, using lots of visual content, especially for somebody that's a hearing impaired person. The contrast for somebody that's visually impaired, the background or the text or the image, for instance, I didn't use any I just used the plain background with black ink. If you go to Washington in my national meeting, this is how they do it. They don't have any frills. People with visual impairments will use a PowerPoint that has some things on the edges, so you don't have to be just bland. I just did to show you, to show what's going on. But again, at the national level in conferences, this is the way most people within the sensory disabilities area would present a PowerPoint, just black on white. I have probably, because you're seeing it on your screen, have included more information on each slide than I would if I knew I had somebody with sensory visual disabilities in the audience. So going specific now, auditory information is, as we know, is not equally accessible, not just to somebody with hearing disabilities, but anybody that needs more time to process. someone with auditory processing disorder, which is different from a hearing loss, someone that needs more time to process information, somebody even that has memory issues. So it's important to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, although we know that, I don't know that we always think about that. And again, a slide of a lot of different options for somebody with an auditory impairment. It's from captions. We'll have another slide to get into captions a little bit more. They might need written transcripts of the videos or sign language. It's enough to drive you crazy and make you just want to shut down now and not do anything. But there's some easy ways to do this. There's some ways to kind of get around it, so it's not as overwhelming. And that's really my goal, is to try to help this at least not be quite so overwhelming for you. It's the same thing with vision. They're going to need stuff probably more in an oral format. So like a PowerPoint with an oral lecture over it, PowerPoint with auditory information over it is a perfect way to start, just to put it, get it ready before, put it up in your class, and it's accessible to everybody. When I'm showing the, when I'm doing videos on the ear and how sound goes to the ear, I need somebody with an auditory impairment to understand that, because you would be surprised how many don't. Well, there are videos, and I just pull them off YouTube, that have the captions right. It's just right there. It's not really captioned. It's just somebody writing it up at the same time on a board, the same time they're talking. So the writing is up there at the same time the oral is, and everybody in my class can access it. And I didn't have to worry about captioning the video. And I've just checked back if I had somebody that has a hearing impairment. I just check back. Okay, were you able to access this? Do you need me to do anything different? And they'll tell me, and I can go from there. And it reminded me, pulling this information, that if you teach a math class and you don't know what the heck the graphic they're putting up there is, sometimes I assume that somebody's going to understand an audiogram, and I have to remind myself to explain what that graph means. And I know we all know that, but just to remember that goes into universal design for learning. And then I was doing a presentation, and I used just a PowerPoint thing from my PowerPoint, and it was all caps. And when I asked at the end what I needed to change, a guy, because he's in hearing impairment, spoke up and said, "I don't like you using all caps." It was blurry to me, and I couldn't read it. I had not thought about that. So now I try to, if I pick a PowerPoint option on my PowerPoint app that makes all the slides caps, so here are some things that you can use if somebody has visual problems and you need to change. You need to give them. These are I'm just giving you what's out there in case you're not aware. But providing descriptions, and I'll give you some resources for that, for the text. It's just, if you have a picture and you have somebody that's blind, you need to describe the picture. Lady sitting in her office, short black hair, pictures behind her with writing on them, a lamp behind her, a bookcase behind her, white shirt with black stripes. So that somebody that is visually impaired has some kind of mental image of who is speaking. That's very helpful. This is touch for somebody that's blind, more like Braille. Physical objects.
I'm sorry, you're fading in.
I'm fading out. Yeah, I'm moving back because I'm getting excited about what I'm talking about. Thank you. But this is just basic stuff that's out there that I wasn't sure if everybody. I did not want to assume that you knew it, but I did not want to offend you either. So here's some strategies. The digital synthetic text-to-speech, there's a bunch of that stuff out there. I would recommend trying it. You have to check it though. the technology's not there where somebody's going to get all of the information. So you would need to check back with them for gaps. I have used the YouTube captioning just like everybody else, and you just have to check it to make sure it's accurate enough to convey the information that you want them to have. If you have somebody that, and I'm still saying if you have somebody in your class, the idea of University Design for Learning is that you just put it up there. But I teach college, I know, and trying to create, especially if you're trying to design a whole course. So I'm just trying to be honest with you between what is really ideal and what I know are your issues. An intervener is somebody that works with somebody that's blind, to go in a classroom, do that visual description that I just explained. That can be provided financially for somebody that's blind. So you might see that in a classroom, depending on if the person's asked for that. Or one of our doctoral students that was blind, her husband would read a lot of things to her. So somebody that's in college that's visually impaired or has a hearing loss needs a lot of support from other people outside of the university. And so just your being willing to help them and ask them is very helpful for them. And then again, depending on the person's needs is where you would go as far as what you would provide for them. Now that's separate. I mean, Universal Design for Learning is supposed to be for everybody, but if you're dealing with a low incidence disability, ask them what they need. Ask them. And Student Disability Services will provide that. If you have an online discussion, they will provide real live captioning or an ASL interpreter to join the meeting. So that's how, if you have somebody with an auditory impairment, that's how you can do an online meeting. And you just set it up with Student Disability Services. And it's really the student's responsibility to set that up, but that service is available. Okay, let's go through here. So this is just how the person expresses themselves. It goes back to the assignment, given multiple ways of presenting the information back to you. And this is just if you have somebody that has cerebral palsy, they will typically have the keyboard and whatnot that they need, but just be aware that they may need to submit something, do something, and it may be slower. For instance, in using an interpreter, there's a lag. So I was in a dissertation committee on a deaf person through the communications department, and when he told her he passed, she was using real live captioning, and he says, we were all excited waiting on her, and he goes, give her a few seconds, and then all of a sudden she just broke into smiles because of the lag. And then we were able to celebrate. We celebrated twice because we didn't, even myself, knowing to wait. I knew she wasn't going to get it, but I celebrated with them anyway. So those are some of the physical response type things that work. Okay, so video, and I'll send this PowerPoint to you. I just didn't get it there in time this morning. But this site requirement right here is what is required for video if you're interested in the law. Okay, the captioned, real-time captions, it'll tell you what it is, how to do it. Again, Student Disability Services takes care of that for us at TTU. And then transcript is just a written transcript. If you do a short 1-minute video and you just want to provide a transcript of it and put it underneath the video, that can suffice too, as long as I have access to it. We went over this with the visual impairment, but this link you'll have access to. It's how to just helping you describe video, giving you more specific information again that I could have done it in an hour if I'd taken an hour slot, but you can get that on your own if you want. Because you'd have to play with it even if I showed it to you. A little bit about law. It is required. I know we all know that by now, but specifics of it. Basically, we have to provide this information. I didn't cite the laws in my reference list, I just realized, but you have to make things, you don't have to modify the curriculum, you just have to accommodate it. So you don't modify it all, you don't change it, you just give them access to it. So in special ed lingo, I know I'm short on time, but in special ed lingo, a modification is where you change the curriculum, and accommodations, you just change how they do it. You don't change the content. And not, you know, you just make it accessible. You don't even necessarily have to change how they do it if you don't want to. You just have to make it accessible. Okay, so know those two terms. And I like to straighten people out when they say, well, why do they get to go? Do you change the stuff? No, this student that was hearing impaired did everything all the other doctoral students did. She just used real live captioning for most of her coursework. So these are some of the different things. Captioning, real live is when you have somebody hooked in that's listening, that is speak, you know, there's different ways of doing that, but it's in real time. And that link that I gave you will tell you the different ways. Captioning synchronously, like on YouTube, is done before. But a real live captioner is when if you have a doc student, especially a doctoral student in class, and they need something, they want to see everything you said. They don't want a note taker. They want to see it. And that, so that gives them a written, you know, they're a high level reader, that gives them a written thing of everything that's available. And then these are just different keywords for somebody with low vision. So this is basically a recap of what I just said. Should have stuck to my thing. If I had a chance, these were just some individual students that I have had that I thought, if you haven't had anybody that might help you understand a little bit. One student was in forensic science. He needed CART, the real live transition, because there weren't signs for all the stuff the professor was saying. There were no ASL signs. So he needed that's an example of somebody really needing the written transcription. The accessibility issue with graduate students. This student that I spoke of earlier actually did her dissertation on coping mechanisms of students with hearing impairments at grad school, because it was so stressful, even with her major professor really getting her and really working with her. So just understand that if they snark at you a little bit, that's kind of, they're real stressed. And then I had a professor in my department about the online meeting. And I said, well, I think she'll go, you know, she advocates, she'll go through student disability services, she'll get what she needs, ask her. I went back, checked with him, and he said she accessed it on her own, no problems. So if you want to have an online discussion with somebody that's deaf in your class, they should take care of that. And student disabilities will help them do that. This is just more things about, there was one blind lady, took her 20 years to get her dissertation done, but she did it. They made an exception because of her visual impairment, blah, 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 but she got it done with a lot of help from her family. Another dog student, his dissertation is how to make math accessible, because he was told, I mean, they shot him back to education because the math department, the stuff was just the textbooks couldn't be put into Braille because of the graphs and whatnot. And he paid $6,000 to get the APA manual put in Braille so he could read it. That wasn't paid by the college. Just giving you some personal empathy for what students are going through. And then for autism, I realized I didn't give you any information other than basic stuff for that. The Burkhardt Center has a program called CASE, Connections for Academic Success and Employment. You can contact them. They work with college students with autism to help them be successful. So you can contact them. Get that information at the end. They will be more than glad to give you, if you explain the students' characteristics, they will be more than glad to give you helpful, specific information on how to alleviate that particular student's stress. I worked with a couple of students their first semester with autism, because when I was a doc student, I was working on case. They were all over the place. I had to show them where classes were before their first day. They were both making the dean's list by the end of the semester, by the end of their tenure. Example of a success story. I mean, they were a mess. I went to the library and this kid is just a practice assignment with homework helps, where if you needed help, you could click a button. He sat for 20 minutes. He wouldn't click the darn button because he didn't understand they were taking off 1/4 of a point for every time he hit it. I finally just did something I shouldn't have done, and I clicked it for him. And I thought he was going to have a connection, but I couldn't sit there any longer. I didn't have time. And then once oh, that's not bad. No, but just some again, trying to give you personal, not trying to talk about myself, but trying to give you some personal information.
Mm-hmm.
The D down there, I was being too, he told me to get out of his way. He could do it himself. And I did, and he struggled for a little bit, and then he started making the dean's list. So they'll tell you what they want and what they need and what they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of wrap up. And then I wanted to, I don't know if we need to get off, but I wanted to, if you had anything you wanted to share, I was really wanted to know what the audience, what you guys have experienced and what kinds of additional information you might want or need. It was kind of hard for me to plan, not knowing what your background was or who was going to be here in terms of what information you needed. And I did not know how to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked really fast, and I did not ask for questions in so I could get it all in. And I should have probably planned better, but.
Well, Dr. Cackley, we appreciate you so much sharing this information, and I think some, really important takeaways for everyone, regardless of whether we're working, with someone who has a specific identified disability or not, is the importance of checking in and understanding that everyone is an individual and every situation is individual, and just really, keeping those good lines of communication open. Thank you so much for also agreeing to share your PowerPoint. If you will send that to me, I will be glad to share it with everyone.
Sure.
And also I can copy you. And then if people want to reach out to you directly with questions, would that be okay with you?
That will be, sure.
Okay.
The next on here are all the links. Of course, most of you know the TTU, but I've given you a link for somebody with the VI and deafblind, because you don't have a ton of students, but if you have a specific one, maybe can give you really specific information. And then of course the Burkhart Center, you can Google that, but yeah, I'll share that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these universal design techniques that really are aimed at student success. We appreciate you so much. And we thank you all for coming this afternoon.